Okay, so how often should you really be feeding your shrimp tank? Now we have a massive tank here, it's 480 gallons, it has thousands and thousands of shrimp, but it always comes down to how much should we feed them? Should we feed every day? Should we feed 3 times a day? Should we feed once a week? You hear so many different stories out there, you hear so many different opinions and different advice, and the truth is, it's a tricky question. It's what type, how much, how often, powdered versus hard, you know, these are all things that we're going to talk about and hopefully come up with good answers so that everyone can go forward and know exactly how much to feed their shrimp and when to feed them. The very first thing I want everyone to know is that the type of food you feed is not as important as you may think. There's tons of great options out there. There's tons of great foods. Just pick what works for you and stick with it. Don't change just because I'm making a video about it. If what you're doing is working, keep with it. And there's other things you can pick up in this video that will make sense for you. But for us, the #1 food that we really like is definitely Bacter AE. Bacter AE is always going to be #1 with anything. #2 is EBI Tengu Meal. This has just been a great food that we've been feeding. Really like it. I like how the shrimp react to it. I like the results that I've got from it. So that's an underestimated food that I highly suggest. The EBI Tengu Pumpkin is pretty good. They don't like it as much, but it provides good minerals and nutrients that they need. The shrimp lollies are always going to be a favorite just because it's fun to bring them up to the front of the glass and actually be able to see the shrimp. So I really like those. The mineral junkie pearls is an amazing food that they really like. Shrimp dinner is really good and shrimp baby is really good. So these are all great food options that you can choose for your aquarium. But again, whatever you're using, if it's working, keep doing it. Even if it's just normal fish food. Just stick to what you know, stick to what is working for you, and that's one key to success. Okay, so we're gonna feed one of my favorite foods of all time. It's the shrimp lollies by GlasGarten. It's an amazing product. It's good just for bringing your shrimp up to the front, kind of see how they're doing. And so this is all you do to feed it. We're literally just gonna get one. I'm gonna stick it right towards the front of the glass so that we can watch them and just kind of see how quickly they come up and just get an idea of how hungry they really are. And that's it. As I drop everything. So already, just in the amount of time that it took me to dry off my hands and walk back over to the camera, there's already shrimp crawling on it. Now, shrimp lollies are more designed as a treat than anything else, so it's like a dog. Like, if you feed a dog dinner and it eats, you know, all or most of its dinner, I guarantee if you give it a treat, it's gonna eat the treat. Same thing with these guys. This is a good way just to inspect the shrimp, make sure they're all healthy, make sure they're eating. Now, if no shrimp come out when you put these in here, there's a good chance that something's wrong with your tank. Because again, these are treats. If an animal doesn't want to treat, usually it's because it's sick, it's old, something like that. So you want to ensure that the shrimp are coming out for something like shrimp lollies because, again, it is a treat, and if they're not coming out, something could be wrong with your tank. Out of feeding your shrimp, the #1 most important thing is having natural food sources for your shrimp. Now, what I mean by this is having surface area, having places for microorganisms to thrive, having surfaces that algae can grow on and it won't bother you. And so moss is one of those things that I always recommend to everyone because it provides so much surface area and microorganisms tend to thrive in here. All the particles in the water get stuck here, so it becomes a really good feeding ground for shrimp. As you can see, here they are. Haven't fed them in a couple days and they are just grazing away on this moss. The next thing is algae. I mean, having algae on your glass is not the most sightly thing in the world, but it's extremely effective. Now, shrimp can grab onto this, they can eat it, they can graze on it, whatever they want to do. Having algae in your aquarium isn't always a bad thing. It can be a good thing. And as long as you can get away from the fact that it's not the most gorgeous thing to have in your tank, you could just keep it in your tank just simply for the fact that it's providing a food source for your shrimp. It's a natural food source. So if you miss a couple days on feeding, no big deal. Last week, I asked you guys if we could hit 1,000 likes on the video, that I would do another video this week, and here I am doing another video this week because you guys came through. Thank you guys so much for the support. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new here. We want you to be a part of this journey. We want you to see what happens with this 480 gallon tank behind me. and all the videos that are to come of this tank and all the new stuff that we're doing. So hit that subscribe button and enjoy the rest of the video. The more natural feeding grounds you have in your tanks, like plants, driftwood, rock, algae on the glass, the more of those, the less you're gonna have to feed. So if you're just literally having a bare bottom tank with really no decorations in it, no natural decor, no plants, no nothing, you're obviously gonna have to feed a lot more because your shrimp aren't getting the natural food sources that they would in a tank like this one, where there's tons of places to hide, tons of places for algae to grow, and tons of places to find microorganisms to eat. So let's say that your tank is not quite as dense as mine, it doesn't have as many plants, it doesn't have as much driftwood or rock or anything like that. It's just a bare bottom tank with minimalistic plants. How much you're gonna feed? And so for us here at the shop, we feed once per day. We take the weekends off because we don't want the person doing accountability on the weekends to have to worry about feeding. And so we take those few days off. That way, come Monday, Tuesday, the shrimp aren't pooping in the bags when we're shipping them. And there's a lot of factors that go into it, but long story short, we feed 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, for tanks that have nothing like what you're seeing right now. Now for a tank like this one that has the driftwood, it has the rocks, it has the plants, it has all the algae grown in it, we only feed this tank maybe twice per week. Now the main reason we do feed is because it's good to just make sure the shrimp are healthy. If you put food in there and they're eating it right away, you know that they did need food. And so it's a good test just to kind of see how the aquarium is doing, see how the shrimp are doing. And so we feed for that, and also because we have bamboo shrimp in here. Bamboo shrimp are filter feeders. They sit in the water current and they need specific types of food. And so we make sure to feed just simply because of those shrimp. It's been about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and you can see the shrimp are just swarming out of every nook and cranny, coming up to see what the hype's all about, and they're starting to swarm it. So again, it's just a really good way just to see what's going on in the tank, get a view of a couple different shrimp. As you can see, there's some really nice blue ones coming around now, and really it just gets you excited about the tank. It gets you excited about how all the shrimp are doing. The babies are growing, they're getting older. There's even some like medium-sized young adult babies in here now, which is really exciting. And so the shrimp lollies are just a great food, and this is not a sales pitch. It's just something that I really enjoy, and I think it's a fun thing to videotape too, and I think you guys enjoy it as well. Now the main way that you can tell if you need to be feeding more, if you need to be feeding less, is the 1 hour rule. If you put food in your aquarium and the shrimp swarm it and it's gone within an hour, then you're good. You know that they needed fed, you can feed more often. But if you put food in the tank, the shrimp really don't care for it, maybe a couple come by and pick at it, but they're not really eating it, remove that food after an hour, maybe after 2 hours, and then take a couple of days off. Maybe don't feed for 3 days. Just take your time. It's always better to feed less than too much. I always tell people it's never good to just continuously switch up foods. It's easy to get sucked into the marketing of food where there's the new best food and you have to try it because so-and-so is using it. Maybe Robert Flip Aquatics is using it and you just have to have it. That's not the case. If what you're doing is working, keep doing it. Don't change. Don't change because of me. Don't change because of anyone else. Do what works for you, but I want to show you guys what works for me. And so things like shrimp lollies, like mineral junkie, shrimp dinner, shrimp baby, Bacter AE, EBI Tengu, EBI Pumkin, like those are all things that work really good for me. And so I tell you guys that because if you guys want to have the success that I've had with the shrimp that I sell, then that's how you do it, and that's what I encourage you to do. Now if you're gonna buy shrimp from someone else, find out what they do and get their advice and feed what they feed, because that's really what's gonna lead to success. Just so you guys can see the mass amount of shrimps are in here, they're everywhere. I mean, this is a completely different part of the tank. This is where the flow is the highest, and so I think all the shrimp naturally come here because this is where they're smelling the food, and then they slowly migrate left or right. You can see they're all making their way slowly over to the food. There's just a pile, and I mean a pile of shrimp over there, and it's fun to watch. It really is. So it's been about 5 minutes since we put this in here, and this is literally turned into a shrimp lollipop. There are shrimp completely covering the stick, and they're just going to town. I would say, if I had to count, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I would say there's probably about 50 to 60 shrimp just on the lolly. and then all the shrimp around it. So there's maybe 100, 200 shrimp just in this frame right now. And then if you just pan around, there's more right there. There's more to the left of it. There's more even over there. There's a ton more back there. And then there's still a ton on the shrimp lolly. So they are absolutely everywhere. And this is what you want to see. You want to see the shrimp just swarming the food and eating it and getting their fill. Now, what you will notice is, again, the babies are not able to get near the food. So that's where feeding powdered foods and feeding Bacter AE and shrimp baby and maybe even snowflake that just flakes apart, that's where those foods come in handy and really make a big difference in getting your colony to thrive, because you need to feed shrimp where they are and not force them to fight over it, kind of like they're doing right now. So I am going to put some Bacter AE in here and probably some shrimp baby, feed the bamboo shrimp, and then hopefully everyone will be full. And okay, so we're going to do our special blend of Bacter AE and shrimp baby. We're going to mix it into this water container and then feed the entire tank. So the first thing we're going to add is shrimp baby. We're just going to do 1 scoop. Again, there's probably about, I would say about 3,000 shrimp in this tank. Maybe a little bit less, maybe like 2,500. And so we're going to do 1 full scoop of shrimp baby. And we're going to do 1 full scoop, a little over a full scoop of Bacter AE. And then we're just going to add that directly into the tank after mixing it. Give it a good mix with the back of the net. Sorry, water's going everywhere. Just get a nice little concoction. Now we're literally just going to pour this in. You can see it's just a nice cloud of water right there. And this is right above where the shrimp lolly is, just so that everyone knows, like, hey, there is food. And then we're going to feed the rest of this to the back corner where the bamboo shrimp stay. And that's all it is. Now, the problem with powdered food is it does get all over the tank, so it's easy to overfeed. So I always say feed less than you would think. So obviously for this tank, 1 scoop is not very much, and 1 scoop of Bacter AE is not very much, but I'd rather go less than too much, so I always just feed the bare minimum. And even with 1 scoop, you can just see there's tons of particles floating around the tank, so it is a lot more food than you would think it is. But this is going to overflow down into our sump. The shrimp down there are going to eat it, so it serves multiple purposes. And so always go on the low end rather than the high end. So one thing that you should notice right away is that the aggression around the food is drastically dropped. All the shrimp are pretty content foraging where they are, looking around the ground, finding food that's floating through the water current. And the shrimp that are on the lolly are happy eating the lolly. And so this is a great way to reduce aggression. So that's why powdered foods are so important. And they're going to feed the shrimp exactly where they are, so baby shrimp can kind of stay in hiding. And it really does reduce aggression. It really does. So there's great things about feeding powdered foods. Again, the bad thing is that if you feed too much, it could foul your water rather quickly because particles of food can turn to ammonia like that. Like they just absorb right into the water. And so overfeeding with powdered foods is so much easier than with solid foods. So definitely be careful with powdered foods, but I do think they are a necessity to having a really successful tank. So now that the powdered food is in there, it's obviously going to the highest flow area. So all the shrimp are just kind of hanging out here. They're all searching around for some food, and it just makes the tank so much more enjoyable when all the shrimp are out and you can see them. And there's literally just shrimp everywhere. These are blue bolts. They're a little bit more picky on the eating side than say Neocaridina, but so my biggest and the most important advice with feeding your shrimp is having these things in this picture right here. Driftwood, moss, plants, algae on the glass, and then even some rocks. So there's some rocks right there. And so these are the things that could really make your shrimp tank that much more successful, that much more breeding, that much more doing good. Just having these little simple things. Now, if you're doing this to breed shrimp and sell them, this is not the ideal setup because the shrimp are going to get mixed into the rocks. They're going to be hard to catch. It's going to be hard to call them. All those things create interesting problems, but if you're just trying to have a beautiful shrimp tank, this is a way that you can do it that would reduce the amount of feeding. I hope you guys learned something today. I hope you have a better understanding of how to feed your shrimp, what type of foods you should feed, everything like that. And you guys just make it a great week. Thank you again so much for the support. We really do appreciate it. You guys have a great week, and God bless.